That's great, and we're very humbled to be able to speak with you today and share some of our story with you. It's certainly a privilege to speak as New Diamonds, and for those of you that don't know us, we've been involved a little over 10 years, and tonight we want to share some of our experiences, some happier moments and some not so happier moments, but we share those experiences in an effort to give you hope and you belief. For those of you that are just getting started, just getting involved, for those of you that are sat out there tonight still deciding, for those of you that are sat out there still wondering whether to take it seriously, our message is quite clear. Yes, it does work, and you've heard plenty of those messages this weekend. The second message is, however, no, it doesn't take 10 years. Not as long as it took us. It should never take anyone that long in this day and age. As long as you're prepared to plug into that system and listen to the fantastic leadership that have just left this stage and that are helping all of you out there today. You see, in most businesses, success is limited. In most businesses or jobs, ambition is limited, incomes are limited, and lifestyle is limited. But in this business, the only limitations are those that you put on yourself or that you allow other people to put on you. The future is definitely in your hands with this business, your control. Before we got involved in the business, there was nothing special about us, nothing particular about our background that gave us any advantage over anyone getting in the business in those days or even in this day and age, except for a couple of things that were very personal. We had a very, very strong commitment to ourselves and our family. And our commitment was to seek and find a more secure future than we had as a family. We had belief also that life could be better. And we had a willingness to accept that we didn't know everything. I knew I certainly didn't know everything because where I was when we saw this business proved that beyond any shadow of doubt. And the other thing was we had a determination to succeed. How did all that start? What were the circumstances that led us on to this opportunity? How did it all happen? Well, one of the secrets for us was that we worked this business as a team. Not only a team with the other leading distributors in the UK and of course Jerry and Mandy, but also a team as a family. And I'd ask you now to welcome that very important member of that team, my wife Greta.
Good evening. Well, this is a very special business, isn't it? It's a family business. It's a business where every member of the family can play a part, and every part that is played is exceptionally important. We have a family member who has played her part in this business exceptionally well. She has understood the business from an early age, and because of the teachings of this business and the people in the business that she has associated with, she has become a very positive, mature young lady. She's very beautiful, not only on the outside, but more importantly, on the inside as well. She's never once complained about this business, although sometimes it has meant that we have been away from her quite a lot, sometimes on special days like her birthdays, and some days when she hasn't been feeling too well. She's been a constant source of motivation and encouragement for Pat and I. She's a diamond, and we love her very much. Please welcome on stage our daughter Nicola.
Thank you. I would just like to tell you all how proud I am of my mum and dad. As a result of their good, hard work in this business, I've been given the greatest gift that I could ever want, and that is time. Time to spend with my parents and to be a true family. I was always told by Mum and Dad that one day they would be diamonds, and by keeping that dream alive, it's become so wonderfully true.
What a wonderful business this is for our children, isn't it? And what a future it offers them all. Thank you, Nikki. Well, as Pat said, we have to tell our story this evening. But before I do that, before I start to tell our story, I have to do something very important, and that is to thank you all for the cards, the gifts, and the flowers that you have sent to us. We've had thousands of cards, and we've read every single word on every single one that we've opened so far. My mum has read every single word on every single card. Pat's dad has read every single word on every single card, and so has Nicola. And we've thoroughly enjoyed every minute of it. Please thank your children for the gifts that they have sent to us. We will treasure them always. And thank you so much for the photographs of your children that you sent to us. They're quite delightful. And please, as time goes on for you in this business, let them know what the future holds for them if they just keep at it with you. As I was reading through those cards, I thought, I don't know these people. I don't know some of these people. I've never met them. And yet they have written such lovely, warm words in these cards, messages of love and thanks. And this went on for a few days, and I was still baffled by the whole thing, reading the names, and I was thinking, I don't know them, and yet they have written these words to us. Then one day, it dawned on me, and I thought, come to your senses, Greta. You do know these people. You know them very well. You see, it's a special thing to meet people personally and to shake them by the hand for the first time. But you know, it's so much more special when you know what's in their hearts. And we know all of you very, very well, because of the messages which you wrote to us and which we know came from within your hearts. And that experience has humbled us very, very much. And we thank you so much for that experience. Well, on with the story. Before we saw this business, we already had a business. We had cafes and a restaurant not too far away from Birmingham. And as we were driving along the Hagley Road, I think it was on Thursday, I forget now, up to the Five Ways Island, it took me back, because you see, my mum and I used to go along that road many times on a Saturday, very early in the morning, to wait for the shops to open so that I could shop. And I used to have, I believe, Mum, an old Wolseley 1500 that had holes in the floor, and but we used to make it, and we used to have a really good time. And I thought, well, all those years ago, I think I was about 17, and who would have thought that now I'd be coming here back to Five Ways Island to do this? It was quite mind-blowing when I look back. But we thought that having those businesses in the early days was our dream come true. Can you believe that? One of our cafes was right next door to the bank, and every time we put money in the till, the bell on it would ring loudly. And I used to get quite worried about that, because I thought, if the bank manager hears this, and he hears the bell on this till, he's going to think that we're making an awful lot of money. So I'd try and open the till quietly, which was quite impossible because it was such an old till. And in actual fact, the money that was going into that till was just a few pence for a cup of coffee here and a cup of tea there. We had a good relationship with our bank manager. We had to have, because he kept loaning us money. And Pat and I became very good at juggling that money around. We worked very long hours in our cafes. We had to be up early so that we could prepare food before we opened at 9 o'clock in the morning. And I can't think for the life of me why I ever did it, because if there's one thing I dislike immensely, it's cooking. We stayed open until 10 o'clock in the evenings, and when the door was locked, we had to mop the floors and clean the tables and clean all the way through, ready to open again the next morning. We were open 6 days a week, and on Sundays we opened at 2 o'clock in the afternoon until 10 o'clock in the evening. And believe it or not, we did this for 3 to 4 years, and then we realized that we weren't getting very far and that we weren't likely to either. The last thing we wanted to do was to borrow any more money from the bank, but we knew that we could not carry on the way we were. We had no time to do anything except work. We had no free time to enjoy ourselves, and we didn't have a lot of money. Eventually, one day, Pat said to me, "It's time for a change. We're not getting anywhere with this. We're barely managing to make ends meet. I'm going to get a job." And then he turned to me and he said, "And I suggest that you do the same." Well, I was all for Pat getting a job, but I wasn't very impressed at all that I would have to do that myself. You see, I knew that I would have a boss if I got a job, and that he or she would be calling the shots and not me, and that didn't appeal to me at all. However, I knew that I would have to get a job, and that it would not be very decent of me just to let Pat go out and earn the money for both of us. And besides that, we needed 2 wage packets to exist. So I did get a secretarial job, and I was amazed at just how much shorthand I'd remembered, but I really didn't enjoy it. Pat was offered a job in a large company in the service industry. He had, of course, been out of this particular field for a long time, and he had to take a lower position. He had to start to climb that ladder again. And he did do that, actually. He gained promotion after promotion so that he could keep us in the lifestyle that we were beginning to become accustomed to. Well, every promotion he got was great because he got more money. There was only one thing wrong. Every time he had a promotion, we had to move to a different area to live. And we did move several times, eventually ending up in the area in which we now live in Somerset. It didn't take me long to see that his boss, a man I had never met, and his job, of which I knew very little, was controlling us and our lives. And that made me very resentful. Pat was always at work and I saw very little of him. He used to have to travel around the country to various sites. In the summer he was always on site because this was the busiest time for him. He would get up at 5 a.m, go to work and get home around 6:30. He didn't want to eat because he'd already grabbed something en route. So he would come in and fall asleep on the sofa, totally exhausted. Sometimes he would give me an instruction before he went to sleep, like, wake me at 9:30 so I can shower and be back on site to see the night shift at 11 o'clock. If there was no such instruction, I would wake him up to go to bed. When I complained that he was always at work, he began coming home earlier, but always with a pile of papers to work his way through. It was really a catch-22 situation. The work had to be done, either at work or at home. Strange as it may seem, we decided we would like to start a family. And of course, when Nicola came along, I had to give up my job, and Pat, of course, relied on his job even more. He was allowed to take 6 weeks holiday a year, but he actually only took 1 of those 6 because he needed to be at the site to make sure that everything was going smoothly. One day he said to me, let's take a holiday, let's take a week's holiday, a family holiday. And I thought, oh, this is going to be great. We're going to have a week together in a caravan. Well, it didn't worry me that it was going to be in a caravan. All I was concerned about and happy about was the fact that we were going to be spending a whole week together as a family. Then just before we went away, he told me that for 2 of those days during that week, I would have to stay with Nicola on my own, because his boss had told him that he would have to visit one of the sites so that he could attend various meetings. This man, the boss, who I did not know, was controlling our lives. He was taking my husband away from me. I didn't like it, and Pat didn't like it either. At this particular time in the country, lots of people were losing their jobs. There were lots of redundancies taking place. And we actively looked to see what else we could do should the same thing happen to Pat. We were looking for a safety net. We started a small business dealing in paintings and sculptures. Pat had always been, and still is, interested in antiques. And he read as much as he could about them and found out as much as he could about all aspects of them. He knew he needed to have knowledge about them if we were going to make a success of it. Pat still had his job, and we weren't really terribly successful in this venture. And I can remember one day, and it was as if it was yesterday, I can remember saying out loud, there has to be more to life than this. Dear Lord, show me what it is. Please tell me, show me the way. And you know, they say that God works in mysterious ways, and he surely does, because it wasn't long after that that we saw this business, and it was actually shown to us by a colleague of Pat's from work. He came to our home one afternoon, put up his board and easel, and drew the circles. Now, as you know, we are taught in this business not to prejudge, but I had certainly prejudged our sponsor. I saw him as a company man, a workaholic just like Pat, and I knew his track record. But you know, I will be ever grateful to him for showing us this business, because he is the only man who has ever offered us freedom, the greatest gift that he could offer to anyone. And he is now one of our very best friends. Well, I can remember in the lounge, Pat sat in the armchair, and I sat on the floor beside him, and our sponsor started talking about dreams. He said, did we have any dreams? And I thought, this guy is nuts. We hadn't got any dreams. All our dreams had been suppressed by Pat's income. But he didn't give up. He kept on about dreams, and I thought, if he mentions dreams again, I was a bit annoyed. If he mentions dreams again, or if he asks me about a dream again, I'm going to tell him exactly what I want. But I know for a fact that he cannot make this dream come true for me. Well, he was persistent, and he did ask me again. And I told him. I said, eternal youth. That's what I want, eternal youth. And he looked at me and he said, you can have eternal youth from this business. All I know is I groaned, and I just thought, what am I going to hear next? Well, he started to draw the circles on the board, and he talked about money, and he said, when you reach this level, you will be able to visit a plastic surgeon, and then you can have eternal youth. But one of the things that really did appeal to me about the business was the fact that we would be dealing with people. And not only did I see money in the circles, but I saw people as well. At that time, I'd almost become isolated from people. I didn't have many friends, and I saw this as a way of meeting people and making friends. And boy, was I right. Now, back in those days, we used to do a product demonstration after the plan. And it's marvelous just how this business has changed over the years. Because when we saw this business first, there were only 200 product and service lines, and now we have over 1,000. As I was saying, we used to do a product demonstration. We don't do that now, of course. And our sponsor, after showing us the plan, began to show us cleaning products and washing powder. And I thought to myself, this is awful. I have to sell soap. I had status. I mean, had it been something like fur coats or diamond rings, that would not have been a problem for me. But that just goes to show that I didn't understand the business at that time, you see, because fur coats and diamond rings are not exactly repeat order items like washing powder is. Anyway, our sponsor left us some information to read and some tapes to listen to. And it's very strange when I look back because, you know, after he left, Pat and I never discussed the business. He went, I got on with my life, Pat got on with his, and we never discussed it at all. And the only thing I can think of, the only reason I can think that that happened was because I blotted it from my mind. It was an event that had happened, he'd gone away, and that was the end of it. And I think Pat had sensed this, and so he never broached the subject with me. But of course, Pat read everything. He digested everything. He studied everything. He listened to the tapes several times over. And then a few days later he said to me, I've made a decision. We're going to do it. And I said, well, you might be going to do it, Pat, but I'm not going to do it, because I don't want to sell that soap stuff. And he said, look, you know nothing about this business. You haven't read anything. You haven't listened to any tapes. He said, do something. Read something. Find out something about the business. Well, eventually I did pick up a book, and I did start to read it. And that book was called The Magic of Thinking Big. And I was very taken by that book, because we are all in that book. It's a business about people and how people think and behave. And I started to really enjoy it. It wasn't easy for me to pick that book up and start reading, because I was used to reading other kinds of books about other things. I only read true murder stories. I knew how to murder people from what I had read.